All right, I am glad to be back again and excited to introduce our next guest. She is a freshman senator who has been making waves on Capitol Hill and in the news. Please join me in welcoming Alabama Senator Katie Britt.
Thank you.
I did want to ask you about the latest news, just to kick this off, that JD Vance is the vice presidential pick for Donald Trump. I know you all joined the Senate together. What kind of a vice president do you expect?
Oh, he's going to be tremendous. First off, we are classmates. Our freshman class is really close. We get together once a month, have dinner. Not only do we talk about policy issues, but we've also had the opportunity to get to know each other and gotten to know JD and Usha. And Wesley and I are grateful to be able to call him friends. I think he is going to be tremendous when it comes to the policy issues, tremendous when it comes to telling his story, and tremendous when it comes to connecting with hardworking Americans, with parents, with families. I think we could not be in a stronger position than we are right now.
Yeah. We were talking earlier, you will be speaking at the convention later tonight in a prime spot. I just wanted to get your reaction. You also were chosen to give the rebuttal to the State of the Union. Yeah. You are a freshman senator. You are clearly a rising star in your party. What do you make of this week? How big of a moment is it for you?
Well, first off, obviously entered this week with a great deal of sadness. I mean, after seeing the events of Saturday, obviously continue to pray for President Trump, for his family, importantly, the gentleman who lost his life, his family, and those that were injured. It's really a moment, though, I feel like, for us to come together as a nation. So not only in prayer, but really finding a pathway forward together. You know, I often say, consistently, that I believe we've got to return to a place in this country where we can show people respect even when we don't agree with them. And I think that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle took the same oath of office that I did, and they're serving the same nation and the same hardworking Americans. And so finding a better pathway forward, I hope, is something that that this lends itself to. But as far as having the opportunity to speak this evening, I am so humbled, and having the opportunity to give the State of the Union response. I believe that the Republican Party is the party of parents. It's the party of hardworking Americans. It's a party of families. And having an opportunity to talk about the things that we're doing, the things that we want to do when we take back control of the Senate, when we win the White House, and when we hold the House, the things we want to do for the American people, that's it's a real honor, and I think the American people are ready for that hopefulness. I mean, they are seeing prices soar. They're seeing a wide open border. They're seeing an actual world in chaos. They want some certainty. They want a plan. They want a vision, and they want some hope. And that's what we're going to give them this week.
Yeah, and I know that you are passionate about families, and this event is about looking at solutions to the high cost of living that impact families and kids. What are you working on? How are you working to find solutions for American families?
So there's a number of things I feel like are affecting children. And so let's start with the mental health cost first. So when you look at social media, I mean, our children are paying the price. So from 2011 to 2019, the rate of depression amongst our young people more than doubled. That directly coincides with the rise of social media. If you look at the facts from last year, 1 in 3 high school young women said she actually considered death by suicide. And then 9%, 9% of our high school population actually attempted death by suicide. We have to do something. I am really proud that there are several bipartisan solutions in the United States Senate right now. I mean, there is a bill that has 60 co-sponsors. It's Senator Blackburn and Senator Blumenthal's bill. That bill needs to go to the floor. I have a bill with Senator Chris Murphy and Brian Schatz and myself and Ted Cruz that helps put up guardrails and helps put parents back in the driver's seat. Doing nothing is not an option. Our children are paying the price. And so when we look at that, certainly that's something I've been proud to work on. Also partnering with Senator Amy Klobuchar on youth mental health research to really try to get to the bottom of this and to be able to help our young people create a foundation to thrive. And then when you move into additional spaces, obviously we know that the price of goods is up. I mean, as a parent, I often say, I don't have to ask people what it's like to raise a kid right now. I am living it. And so whether it is gas prices, grocery prices, electricity prices, or amongst others, finding a way to drive those down so that parents have a greater opportunity to provide for their children is critically important to me. I think we do that through not only energy independence, but becoming energy dominant. And the truth is, y'all, we do it better and cleaner and more efficiently than anywhere else in the nation. And I also look at things that parents are struggling with, like childcare cost, right? I mean, I remember when my husband and I were looking to send our kids to daycare. I mean, it felt like we needed to take out a second mortgage. I'm not kidding. And you think about the number of people who do want to enter the workforce. If you want to have the opportunity to stay home with your child, and you do, I think that is incredible. But if entering the workforce or re-emerging into it, if an impediment to that is that you cannot afford childcare, then we as a nation have got to figure that out and do better. So there's two different buckets that we've got to look at. Obviously accessibility, and then we have to look at affordability and try to figure out how we find a pathway forward, how we put parents back in control of making those decisions, and we give our kids an opportunity to thrive. And your previous guest on here nailed it. When he said, the first and 1,000 days, or I think he said 5 years of a child's life, he said 90% of their brain forms. You think about these kids, guys, that are getting to kindergarten, and by no fault of their own, have never been taught their letters or their colors, or that a dog barks, or been read to, and we expect them to catch up between 5 and 8. Y'all, if an 8-year-old, if you're not reading on grade level by 3rd grade, your chance of graduating high school goes down 4 times. If you don't graduate from high school, your chance of being arrested goes up 4 or 5 times. I mean, if you look at that vicious cycle that we are allowing to be not only created but sustained in this nation, you can trace that back to an 8-year-old. So between 5 and 8, we've got to catch these children up. And guys, that's not on an 8-year-old. That is not on the 8-year-old, that's on us. And so trying to figure out better pathways to create foundations for these children to succeed. And I believe education is the pathway to success. It's the pathway to unlocking the American dream. Those are all things that we've got to do better on.
Yeah, when it comes to coming alongside parents and helping, especially on the affordability front, when it comes to childcare, is this an area where you feel like you can work across the aisle and actually get something done?
Absolutely. Look, here's the deal. There are things where obviously we share a different perspective than our colleagues on the other side of the aisle. But where there is something where we share a common goal, then I think I have a duty to the people that I serve and the people of this nation to get in a room with my colleague and try to figure out a path forward. And so on a number of issues, childcare being one of those, obviously in the education space, been doing it on a lot of women's issues as well. Really proud to partner with Senator LaFonza Butler on the NIH Improve Act. We have the highest maternal mortality, Alabama does, than any other state in the nation. It disproportionately affects Black women. And in 2024, this should be moving dramatically in the other direction. And so LaFonza and I have come together to say, let's do the research, let's get to the bottom of this. Coming together with Senator Maggie Hassan to say, look, it's a Rural Obstetrics Act. It's saying these women, 55 out of 67 counties in Alabama are rural. And so when we look at a woman who is pregnant and is obviously in late stages of pregnancy and may need to deliver her child in a rural area, because we have multiple maternal care deserts in Alabama. About 1/3 of our state does not have access to maternal care. And so when you think about if someone needs to deliver that child, Maggie and I have come together to say, let's make sure that our first responders have the resources, that they have the knowledge, that they have the tools they need to help save that woman and that child. So I could give you example of these kinds of things, and I'm going to continue where I share a common goal with someone, even if they have a different letter beside their name. I'm going to get in a room with them and try to figure out a path forward. And I think this is important to talk about right now, and so I'm glad that you have brought that up, because we've got to continue to do a better job of telling that story and let people know that there are things where we are working together and we are forging a path forward. I think if America heard more of that, I think they'd have an opportunity to maybe exhale a little bit more. And I think it would also give them hope, and it would also, I think, incite an excitement of them to maybe get in a room, maybe work with someone that they don't necessarily agree with on every issue, but where they find that common ground, forging a path forward for the good of their community and the good of the people.
Yeah. Well, speaking of women's issues, you're the youngest Republican woman elected to the Senate ever, and you're serving during a time where your party has struggled to get suburban women in particular on board, especially post-Roe. What do you think your party has to do to reach more women like you and vote for the party?
You know, Steph, I think I appreciate the question, and I think we have to just speak directly to it. You know, the other day we had a hearing with the Secretary of HHS, and I had not intended in my line of questioning. I had a number of questions, particularly about maternal mortality and these types of things that I had planned to kind of sort of bring up and talk about. But before me, Senator John Kennedy had gone, and he had talked about kind of late-term abortions and kind of where the administration was on those things. I think that President Trump has shown us a vision. You see it here, you see it in the platform. We are a pro-life party, and I think we have the opportunity to continue to protect life in multiple ways. But talking about truly where the Democrats are on this, my friends shudder when I speak of it. And in that hearing, we went back and forth, and I just said, I didn't plan on talking about this, but let's talk about it real quick. You didn't put the Hyde Amendment in your budget. And he very proudly said, absolutely, we didn't put the Hyde Amendment in our budget. Then he kind of sort of moved into that space. And so I actually talked about what it was like to take the life of a child at 39 and 40 weeks. And people say that doesn't happen. I actually had just gotten off the phone with a physician who had actually performed those types of abortion. And that's just not where America is. America is not there. I mean, if you look at it, Steph, like 1 in 8 nations in the entire world allows you to have an elective abortion up until the moment the child is born. Only 15 nations in the whole world allow you to have an elective abortion after 15 weeks. 46 out of 50 European nations have limitations on elective abortions after 15 weeks. And so I think when you start talking about it, and when I actually talked about what it takes, delivering a baby, breech, then sticking a knife up the neck, opening up, sucking out the brains, collapsing the skull to get the child through, that's not where America is. And I think we have to do a better job of telling that story.
And also looking back over the past couple years since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, voters across the country have gone to the polls and voting for protecting access to abortion, voting to stop bans at the state level. What do you make of that? That seems to show voters being more concerned about their access versus.
Well, and I think again, we've got to do a better job telling our story, but that's exactly what Roe was for, is to return these rights to the state. I am proud to be pro-life, and am really proud of what our party stands for. We're the party of life, the party of parents, the party of families. I have found it interesting. I rolled out the Moms Act, and I really did think that the concept of the Moms Act was something that could be bipartisan. And the Moms Act is something that provides resources for all of those women who are pregnant, and when they Google it, try to figure out kind of sort of what do you do? I mean, I remember when I found out I was pregnant, and I really didn't know where to start and really didn't know what to expect. And so helping that woman through that journey, it also has a section in there that helps women, whether it's returning to work or whether it is trying to figure out she needs diapers or she needs housing or she needs any of those things. So it has a number of things in there, and I think we continue to tell that story, continue to support women who choose to have their child. And I'm excited about spreading that message, and I think it's one that America can get behind.
And as someone who is pro-life, do you agree with the decision to remove, for the first time in 40 years, a national abortion ban from the RNC platform, or did you wish they had kept the traditional language?
Yeah, so I think obviously President Trump has set the agenda. I think he ran both in 16 and in 20 on returning it to the states. We have done that now. I think we'll continue to work to find ways to protect life, and I think that the platform says that.
Well, thank you. And as my last question, lots of politicians are parodied on SNL, and I did want to ask when you watched Scarlett Johansson.
I got the gold star on that one, y'all. I mean, really.
Well, I do want to hear, what was your reaction? When did you watch it?
Yeah, so I didn't feel like in the moment was really the right time, but my husband actually handled it best. My husband is with me here today. You can't miss him, 6'8", 320, right there in the back. But he was so funny. My daughter had called and she had said, she called him, so I kind of knew. I thought, oh, I know what this is about. And she said, hey, Dad, I don't want to go to school. And I could hear by the response to him. And I think a lot of people forget that, obviously, we put ourselves out there. I put my name on the ballot. I ran. I have stepped into this arena. But my children didn't choose this. And so my husband, I said, put her on speaker, put her on speaker. And so I said, no, sweetie, you've got to go to school. And he said, listen, sweetheart, your mom was played by Scarlett Johansson. Come on. And he said, look, they didn't get a cast member. He said, they didn't bring in a C or a B-list star. He said, they went straight to the top. And he said, think about this. They had to bring in an Avenger to play your mother. And so I have often said, as Scarlett Johansson was the Black Widow, I am really hopeful that becomes my nickname in the U.S. Senate. But yes, so not on my bingo card, but heck, if you've got to be played, I really got the gold star.
Well, thank you so much, Senator Britt. We appreciate your time. And up next, we have my colleague, Stef Kight, who will be interviewing Congressman Jim Banks.